Hey there, ghosties. Welcome to episode 79 of the Ghost Lights podcast. We are going to be plugging away, getting up to 100 by the end of the year, so I hope you stay with us. Today is a very special episode. I've got a very good friend who has helped steer and shift a lot of the way I approach trying to be a man and an artist. His name is Colin Ahern. We talk about the differences between Superman and Batman, why he thinks Superman is better than Batman. He makes some interesting points. It might be a challenge, but I urge you to listen, hear him, see him. We're enough. Now here's War by the Hypnotic Brass Ensemble. Oh, I don't know what the Ghost Lights podcast has become, but frankly, I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 79 of the Ghost Lights podcast. I have a very good friend of mine on. He's the one clapping in the background. His name is Colin Ahern. Colin.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. This has actually been a dream of mine since I started recording this. So I'm really glad that you're on here, because whenever me and you hang out, we always end up talking about like our favorite movies and acting, and we talk about my career. We talk about, where it started for you, and like those are always great conversations, and they're always fun. And you challenge me. You don't let me off the hook.
Well, it's nice to be invited. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm definitely glad you're here.
I appreciate it.
I'm going to try not to stay with you on accents, because I haven't been doing them very well for a while.
That's all right.
Yeah,
we don't need to do them at all. It's just a wee bit.
Yeah, I'm just out of practice.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So, Colin, me and you met in the halls at Metro, actually in the classroom. What brought you into theater? How'd you fall into that?
Well, it's a little complicated, because I actually just found out the answer to that question. Yeah, I didn't know.
This is great.
Yeah, what really had brought me to theater, other than the fact that it was the one place where I was told to keep going as opposed to stop.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, like in class, I was always acting out or causing distractions, or I was helping other people with their homework instead of doing my own. Like I was just constantly causing distractions. Is all I was doing, and getting in trouble for it. And then when I started doing theater, all of a sudden people were like applauding me for doing the same stuff, and it was like, yeah, okay, this seems like the place I'm supposed to be.
Nice.
So I started doing theater in high school, and then absolutely fell in love with it. Just kind of became my entire passion. I developed like my whole life based around theater. All of my lifelong philosophies are based around theater. It just became like a religion for me throughout that experience. So going to college and doing theater was kind of like a natural step for me, because there was nothing else I felt like I could do. But what I found out recently was that I have a personality disorder, and that personality disorder made me kind of do what actors do automatically without knowing it. So where other actors go to class and they apply skills, I was more going to class and just showing off this ability I have to naturally empathize with people and become different people. But it was done as a psychological comfort and not as a intentional performance. And so that's kind of taken a big rug out under my feet. I was so proud of myself for some of these roles that I did, and now seeing it through a different light and understanding that it was just kind of my mental health outlet that I got away with. That's kind of what really got me into theater. And I think that's still, a really cool thing about theater is that it's a place where people like me are welcome. It's always the place for the weirdos and the freaks. It's like the home for us, So I feel like even though I wasn't there for the same reasons that everybody else was, I still felt, accepted and welcome and part of the group. So
absolutely,
yeah, that got me there and that kept me there.
When you through this new lens that you have, one of the roles that I saw you do that I was like, oh shit, I definitely got to keep this guy close. You were the star of this play called Joe Egg. Do you look at that performance differently now? Do you see traits, skill sets that have maybe taken on a different light since your diagnosis?
Well, that role in particular, I always loved because I felt like it was the one that allowed me to really be me, you know. So it's much more like a Monty Python sketch, you know. And so like that's a role I would always love to go back to because it was just so much fun to perform, getting to do all these different voices and play these different characters and be silly on stage the whole time. You know, that's just an absolute barrel of fun for me. So that role in particular, I just feel like took advantage of all these little personality quirks that I've got more than others did. Looking at my skill set through this new lens, you know, beforehand, I would have told you almost a lot of the same stuff, really, that I can't teach people how to act. I never wanted to be a teacher. I never could be a teacher because I just go up there and like do what I do. I don't have a method. And it doesn't make sense to me that other people do. Like, I get that people do, but I've never approached theater from an analytical perspective where I'm like, when I've had to really think about what I'm going to do and what I'm going to do next. It's always been just kind of feeling it and then going with it. And just so it's like a real personal experience. And it's always been dangerous because it's not under total control like a regular performer would have. I really have to rely on, you know, being in a certain emotional space to make sure that these performances go off. And I got really lucky that, you know, I had very few breakdowns in the middle of a performance. But yeah, my skill set now, I look at it and I don't know, it just makes sense. It's nice for it to make sense. I'm a little disappointed that I'm not as good of an actor as I thought I was, but it's nice to have answers to questions.
Yeah. I mean, I will push back. I think you are an excellent actor. It's interesting to hear you describe how it feels just like an energy thing, your performances, your work in a rehearsal space, I would imagine. And when you're talking about maybe it not being, I think the word you use is like safe, because I feel like there's no necessarily like a through line that you're trying to hit, like a rhythm. It's just, or am I missing the mark on that?
There is a through line that I'm trying to hit, but I guess it's more just there's a story I'm trying to tell, and I have a place in that story, and I'm just trying like hell to be that character and to make sure I'm part of that. I'm playing my part of that story. I've always been the believer in the act well your part there and all the underlies. I just feel like once you recognize what your place is in the show, just, you know, do your part to the best of your ability and know that that's the greatest thing that you can accomplish, is just being a part of a story, not the story.
So when there's it's not like you're at risk for, I don't know, changing the blocking, adding in a slap that's not there.
No, not adding blocking or changing blocking or adding a slap. I am susceptible to messing up a line and, you know, skipping ahead. I did that in Joe Egg. I skipped ahead half the play without even knowing it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just thankful I had great performers on stage with me who were able to understand that I just skipped about 20 pages worth of dialogue and then were able to steer me back on course and get the show back on. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that scares the life out of me, because if that other person hadn't known, you know, I would have been going for my bow before we even hit intermission and been like, what is going on here? I thought I had this.
I was doing a Barefoot in the Park for a preview audience, thankfully, and I jumped 5 pages of argument to then deliver the like, it's supposed to be my wife that's thinking about divorce, not me. And I said it 5 pages, and watching the realization of my co-star's face go like, oh no, that's way too early. And then hear my director and the audience go, fuck. And I'm just like, no.
That's great criticism right there.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. There's nothing like a director in the dark.
How can I convey my disappointment in you?
Yeah.
Fuck.
There it is. Mission accomplished. Well done, Wade.
Oh.
You got me. When you said that he had this natural ability to emphasize with the character,
Mm-hmm.
where was that evident before you started doing theater? Was it like it's the things that you watched, read?
I notice it a lot in the things that I watch and the things that I listen to. Music has a real strong effect on me. But like movies especially have had a similar effect where it's like a bleeding effect. I'll go see a movie and then, especially if it's good, I am just a different human being walking out of that movie theater for at least a couple of hours. Sometimes it can last up to like 3 days. It's just kind of weird. It's like I just put on a new skin and I'm somebody else for a little while, and I really don't have any control over it. I just have to go with it. I remember one time we had seen Scream. This was right when it had come out, the movie, and we went to Denny's, and we had, this is where I'm having coffee and sugar, so I'm just like high as a kite, wired up, and we start chatting up these strangers, and I did a masterful performance of Matthew Lillard's character from that movie. I just was that guy for, hours talking to these people. And I mimicked his accent or his weird way of talking throughout that movie, all his mannerisms and stuff. And I was really outside of myself. I was weirding myself out while I was doing this whole thing. So it's just kind of an awkward, it's an awkward experience. And I didn't realize that other people didn't really have this for quite a long time. I kind of felt like this was, I think a lot of people do have a bit of a different feeling leaving the movie theater because it's, there is kind of like a stepping out of that experience and back into the real world. There's a shift there, But for me to stay in that shift place for hours or days on end, that was the part that I really loved about movies because it's like you get to feel much cooler emotions when you're living them through a movie than you do in real life, Yeah. I always thought like fear. Fear is such a cool emotion because it's rare that you feel it in life. And movies try to make you feel it all the time. But it's like, to me, jumping out in the screen, that's not fear. Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, that's fear. When you actually feel scared, someone's watching over your shoulder, that kind of stuff. I'm like, that's one of the scariest emotions in the world to feel, but under a controlled environment, I think it's incredibly cool to feel scared. And because that it's safe, it's a safe kind of a scared. So for me to kind of get into the mindset of a villain or the mindset of a victim or, just that horror mindset for a few days, it's just like you see reality different. And it's like a nice drug that it takes you out of reality for a few days and puts you somewhere else. I just love it. I don't think it's healthy at all. I don't recommend it. But yeah, that was kind of what I get out of it.
Do you have similar experiences when you see live performances? Does it last the same amount of time, or does it hit different because they're real people right in front of you as opposed to through that wall of the screen?
Right. It hits different. So the talent that I typically see on screen is a lot better than the talent I typically see on stage, and that's one thing. But I do think that the power of live theater is stronger than the power of cinema. And so I feel like, unfortunately, too much of my time watching live theater is spent criticizing what I'm seeing as opposed to actually feeling the impact of the power of it. I just feel like so few people and places are able to deliver and do what I think theater is meant to do. But when they do it, it is a profoundly impactful experience, and it can last months, man. I mean, I remember I saw a play called Lydia down at the Denver Center. It's to this day, it still sticks with me. It was down in the Ricketson, the small little box theater down there, and that's where they kind of put on some of their more experimental plays. I'd seen this play, and by the end of it, what was happening on stage, I wasn't sure I was okay with. There was, a young teenage boy masturbating his teenage sister, and she was in the process of killing herself while she was orgasming on stage, and this is how the play ends, and you're just kind of left like, whoa, what did I just see? I'm not sure that I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
And I mean, for days afterwards, I was left shook. Like I couldn't pay attention to what was going on in real life because something which just really shook me about that performance. I went back and saw it, and it's just my favorite play. I just couldn't believe what a strong story they were able to tell and how well they were able to tell it, and how I was able to empathize with a whole new group of people. It's about an immigrant family that I, have never really been around. I've never been able to experience. I got to go through an incredibly unique story because of the talent of those people and the power of live theater. So, yeah, I feel like that's got the strength, but cinema seems to deliver a weaker version more consistently.
What, in your opinion, what is the goal of theater?
I believe it should be to just change a person, just get them to think about something they hadn't thought about before. I really feel like it's just that. If you can leave questioning something maybe you hadn't questioned before, or thinking about something that you hadn't thought about before, I feel like the goal has been accomplished. What I find depressing is that I find a real lack of theater that seems to be of that mindset. It seems to be like most people want to perform just because they want to perform and they want people to see them perform. And that's a lot of the shows that I see, and I could do without that.
Yeah.
But theater that's meant to change people or impact people, to make them different than they were when they came in, that's the theater I'm all about. That's the stuff that gets me fired up.
Yeah. I think, especially after the pandemic for myself, I mean, I feel like that's more of the stuff that I want to do, because I guess I've been faced with, probably been forced to look at the world differently more than I've had to before. Or I should say more than I've allowed myself. I feel like I've done a really good job of taking things to get outraged about, and then not do anything about, and then turn it off, compartmentalize it.
All right.
And over the course of this last year and a half or so, it's every day. It's everything that you see when you scroll, something new to get outraged about, and nothing getting work done. And so if I'm going to be in theater, if I'm going to dedicate my time to it, and even in small ways through the podcast, I definitely want to talk about and do those things that make people think a little more. Do you... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you see cinema, TV having a similar goal, or what's your take on that side of it?
I see much more what I would just call bullshit for entertainment's sake, to make money or to please people's ego. I don't see a lot of people who are trying to take big risks or trying to tell important stories. I mean, there are people out there, but they're just not getting they don't get the marketing, they don't get the exposure. And yeah, when it comes to theater, and I'm just talking about the theater that I've been exposed to, I've seen quite a bit of live theater around town here. I've lived in a few different states over the country and seen live theater in those places, and it's really not all that different. I'm sorry to put it like this, but it seems to me I just watch people jerking off on stage. It feels like that's all that I'm here for, and it's all that they care about is stroking their egos, and not telling a bigger story here. We're in a position right now where the entire sustainability of our species is under threat. And we're not taking that problem very seriously. That's a huge deal to me. Climate change is a huge deal to me. Racial issues are a huge deal. These are things that need to get fixed. And so I don't understand theater right now taking the time for, there's always a place for comedy and slapstick and stuff like that, but there's more important stories that need to be told here. And I'm just wondering, to me, if I was still kind of actively involved in the theater community, would I be all right being involved in shows like, Ragtime or whatever, you know what I mean? Like musicals and just whatever play comes along that I can get a part in, or would I feel like I have to dedicate myself to finding these difficult stories to tell, so that I can feel like at least culturally I had some influence in trying to just shape this conversation and make sure that people knew that, you know, vaccines were safe, or that whatever, you know, just getting accurate information out there. I just feel like when you have, you know, the empty stage is an opportunity, and you can literally like do anything with that space. And so it just really, really pisses me off when I see people have the opportunity and they just take a shit on it and, you know, decide to just, you know, show off and get applause and try to make some money and make it all about them, rather than look at the issues, look at the power and the opportunity that they have to reach out to the community and take advantage of that. I just don't come across that attitude. I just don't see people thinking about theater that way. It's more just like, it's here for me, I'm not here for it. And I've just never felt that way about it.
Would you be able to describe what it feels like when you're watching a show that's not, I would say, being authentic to the moment in and around where that show is being put on, like the context? Like when you say they're up there stroking their egos, what does that look and feel like to you, as opposed to an authentic performance that is deeper than that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm assuming the people listening to this are theater people. I think that they would be familiar with what it feels like, because to me it's like watching a rehearsal in class, you know, where you're just kind of seeing a bit of that bullshit effort, you know, where it's just kind of like the half-assed effort, and they are completely focused on themselves because, you know, it's class, they're learning. And I'm like, it makes sense there. I don't see any risk being taken on stage. I don't see them lending themselves to the opportunity of the moment. You know what I mean? They're just rehearsing their lines in their head and speaking them as they remember them. There's nothing interesting to watch there. When there is, one performance that stands out is Glenn Ross at the Denver Center. This was probably, it might have even been 10 years ago at this point. But I mean, the performances were so good. I didn't have time to stop and criticize. They didn't allow me that moment to stop and think about what they were doing wrong, or, you know, they were just so good and they told the story so well. I was in the moment with them. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to stop to criticize them. That is just really rare, to be grabbed by a cast like that and have my attention held. But it's great when that happens, man. It's cooler than any movie I've seen. It really is.
Who are, shifting gears slightly, who are those artists that you see on screen that go like, this is never about their massaging of themselves, these are the people that do honest, connected work?
You know, from a celebrity standpoint, most of them, I think, admit pretty freely to having a lot of ego in what they do. And that one big reason that they do what they do is admittedly because they like the applause. And that was kind of the line that I had learned back in high school, is you don't do theater for the applause. I've since learned in talking to other actors that's not the case. Plenty of people do theater for the applause. So I just lost my train of thought.
When we're thinking about actors that really connect to that form of performance that's not
Here's a good
grandstanding.
One. Here's a great one.
Okay.
The most handsome man God ever created, Christopher Reeve.
Oh, okay.
His performance as Superman, I feel like there's an opportunity to make something all about you and to really, I mean, blow your ego up. You're about to be every child's superhero. You know what I mean? He was the world's superhero from 1977 until the day he died. And he didn't make that about him. You know, he was constantly about telling a story. He felt like he had to honor the character. He took to the role incredibly seriously and took to the role as an honor to do it, and as if he had a responsibility. And I really, really appreciated that as being a big Superman fan, and of course a fan of theater. That made me a gigantic fan of Christopher Reeve, because I feel like, that's the type of role where you can just, you know, beef up and make it all about scenes with you and your shirt off, and, you know, that's what Superman is to you. And like, you know, plenty of actors now are doing that kind of thing with their superhero roles. It's just about me getting my shirt off and looking sexy up on screen. It has nothing to do with the writers that took the time to, you know, write all these amazing stories to these characters. It's all the artistry that goes behind a comic book character they could throw all that out and they don't care about that stuff. They just care about the opportunity for them to show off. Christopher Reeve didn't do that. He was one of those people who just took to the honor of the art first, and he made Superman a drama. It wasn't. I don't think people really call Superman a comic book movie like they call comic book movies today. You know, it was like a serious drama romance movie.
Well, I mean, it had cachet behind it with those a name you mentioned, Christopher Reeves, Gene Hackman.
Well, Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando. I mean, Marlon Brando is specifically hired to give the movie a little bit more substantial oomph behind it there. But he was a big pain in the ass to work with. And, you know, like I said, to me, the work that Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder did in the movie far outweighs the work that Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando did in the movie. Not that they were bad by any stretch of the imagination, but the amount of work that those two young actors had to do and how well they did it, everything else pales in comparison to me during the film. The two of them are so good.
Yeah. So when we're talking about like a good performance, talk to me about the work that you think has to go into that.
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. I don't know. I've always talked about it, and I've always tried to empathize with it because it's not a process that I've personally had to go through. There are people who, like you, who read a lot of books about theater. Like I remember I read some of Uta Hagen's Respect for Acting, maybe a chapter or two. You know, I think I was required to read it for class, and I never did. And that goes with almost every acting book that I've had. You know, I might get a couple of chapters into it and read it, and they all kind of say essentially the same thing. I really feel like Acting 1 lays out everything you need to know about theater. But I have never taken to that analytical approach towards theater. So I just thought, man, these things just don't click with me. I don't understand how you read something on the page, go, aha, I get it now, and then go and apply that new technique. I just never, it has to me, make sense to me in my soul. I have to change the person I am to identify that behavior, and then I have to go experience it for myself. Totally. And that's the only way to learn. So yeah, looking at the work that professionals have to do, I've always been jealous because I feel like these people have, I have to throw kind of a roll of the dice. It's a gamble every time I take a roll. These people have an amount of confidence. Not to say there's not a gamble that they take, but they're that good and they have a method that they can rely on to get them out of these situations when things aren't making sense or things don't click. They're not relying on luck or just their mood that day in order to get them through a particularly difficult scene. That's the stuff to me that blows me away. Actors that turn up on set and are able to go through these really emotional scenes, and it's like their first day on set, it's their first day shooting, and they got to do like the most dramatic scene with someone they just met, and in the movie they're partners for 15 years, but in reality these people know each other for 15 minutes, and they're able to just like cry and get all this emotion and show all this connection and all this stuff. I'm completely blown away by people's ability to do that. That seems like a superpower that I have no idea how they attain that. So when it comes to the work these people do, I know it's more than I've ever done, and I'm jealous of it, and I've always respected it. I just think it's, it's a way to put me in my place. These people who can take it really seriously and show the amount of dedication it takes to not do just the fun parts. Whereas for me, when it comes to theater, I always wanted to just do the fun parts. I just want to get up on stage and play. I don't want to sit down and do all the backstory and you know what I mean? But these guys do because they're great.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things too, when we're talking about like a specific point in our career, right? You talked about me for a second. I'm not on these levels like a Christopher Reeves or something like that. But there is a capacity to play with all of that homework that they do in advance. Like, I mean, you talk about like that 15-minute knowing somebody, and now we're going down this road together, this emotional thing. I mean, there's a lot of, if they're on their stuff, if they are fully professional, they're doing a lot of prep work on their own, reading the script front to cover, not just their lines, which, I mean, when I'm exhausted, that's what I do. Like, okay, I need to read the script. But I don't have the energy. I'm going to read my lines, and I'll read the whole thing later.
And see, that's the thing that it's struck me as weird. It's foreign to me when it comes to cinema actors, because I feel like they don't necessarily approach the material in the same way. The lines aren't necessarily nearly as important to them as getting a hold of the character is. They feel of certain freedom to change lines and add their own.
That's true.
That we don't have that in theater. We don't. That's just not a gift that we're able to play with there. And so I get to feel like they get to play a lot more, and that unlocks a big door when you feel like you're not necessarily beholden to the script, that you can bring something of your own fresh to the table that might work with this character and might make it feel more your own. I mean, it just changes the game. You know, the playing field is different between the two styles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things I've had the good fortune of working, like one of our former guests on this podcast, Sheila Ivatraster. We were doing in-class work. There's about 8 of us in there, and she would give us a 2-partner scene, and we would start doing it to the point where we had it memorized, and then we would do it without the script in our hand, and then she's like, all right, we're on to something else. And then a week later we'd have our next class, and then she'd go up there and like do the scene from last week. So we got it memorized that day, and we don't have it memorized anymore. And so I'm the first one up. I grabbed the script, like, no, put that away. You don't need it. You got it memorized last week. And then I go up almost immediately, and she's like, no, you've got it. You've got the idea of the scene. Yes. What is it about? Okay, then have the scene, get to the ending. What's it about? So then we get up there, and then once you get like your feet under you, you explore, or you just you fight your way through this scene. And after like the second group, she goes like, okay, the last 2 lines are these are your lines. You have to that's your ending point. Get to that ending point, but I don't care how you get there. I just need you to get there. And so you see all these, you see that exploration of character without being beholden to the line. But that is, you're right. It's not something that I'm afforded to on stage. It's not like I can go up there and ad-lib Giles Corey's lines in The Crucible when I show up for rehearsal. Like that's got to be, I've got to have that memorized. And then once that's the case, you are locked into that. There's not a lot of changing there. It's very true.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, the performers that I've always identified with have been like Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, these guys that, you know, have dealt a lot with depression and mental health issues, have been weird their whole lives, and found this one outlet where they're able to play. And that, the ability to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Protected in a sense. You know, so when Jim Carrey gets hired to play the Grinch, there's not a whole lot of control over what he does. You know, he's getting the job because he's Jim Carrey. So everyone's pretty much saying, Jim, you need to bring you to this part. We're not telling you who the Grinch is. You know, you get to really take this character and make him who you think he should be, and allow us to bring that performance to life. You know what I mean? Again, we don't get that opportunity. We're not we're not hired because people think we have this great talent. It's that there's a guided missile, and you know, we're the parts to that missile. We're going in a direction. We can't change that direction. We're just meant to fit this, you know, this previously set model. And so, yeah, those are 2 totally different experiences. And I feel like people who get to play, there's such a cool spontaneity, genuineness to it. There's a you know, spark of the moment that makes it so interesting and fun. In theater, you have to create that. And I just feel like that takes more work, that takes more practice, that takes more effort than playing does. But the people who can play and do it so well, they have a talent that I don't think you can learn. So, you know what I mean? Like there's benefits and to both sides, I guess. But
how do you feel performance has changed over the years? I mean, you were somebody that
it's gotten so bad.
Oh, really?
Like, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about like 1940s acting, right? Like the old black and white,
Yeah.
it's kind of soap opera-ish now, I guess. It was just very dramatic.
Yeah.
And that it fit that time. And I watched that acting and watch guys like, Gene Kelly and the power and charisma they had on screen. And it makes sense. They don't talk like people talk today. So it dates itself and it places itself outside of the reality that we know, but it seems to fit. And I feel like that trend continued even as generations changed. But now there is so much opportunity for content that the quality of it has just gone down to absolute garbage. I was watching TV, something on Netflix the other day, and it looked like rehearsal. It looked like college class rehearsal. It looked like people doing bad work. You know what I mean? That shouldn't be. They shouldn't be being paid for and presented as this is a performance. I mean, I just didn't understand it. It was as if they were just reciting memorized lines, and I just thought, what the hell happened? Like I thought it took a little extra something. You know what I mean? Like the acting that I see, I feel like I've seen pretty much 75% of the actors I've probably worked with are now eligible for professional work. Where before I would have thought it was like 5%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the small minority of people really have that kind of grit of what it takes. Seeing what it takes to get hired now and seeing what it takes to be called a good actor these days, I feel like almost anybody can do it if you can memorize your lines and not trip over them.
Is that because it's so I can pull up my phone and start recording my new thing, and that's
it's that, but it's also that you can record that thing and then you can put it up on a TikTok, or you can put it up on a YouTube, and you can get millions of people to look at it. So there's just so much hunger for content that it doesn't matter if you do something that takes extraordinary work and talent, or if you poop in a cup. You know what I mean? Like it can take absolutely no talent whatsoever, and you can get the same amount of exposure. You know what I mean? Like your work is almost treated similarly. Yeah, I just feel like doing something that is worth doing this day and age, it must be incredibly difficult to get that out into the forefront, because I'm not seeing it. I just see a lot of really bad acting.
You see a lot of poops in cups.
A lot of pooping in cups. Yep.
Yeah. Is that, I wonder, do you find that that's because I can make that video on my phone popular to 1 million people, and production companies are trying to get things like that?
Well,
I want it to look like that.
Well, we're talking about two different things. There's the production company has their goal, which is, I would think financial, but I'm thinking more about the artist and what their goal is. And, I think a lot of these artists, maybe they don't recognize how selfish of a career acting is. But, they really seem to want to, I lost my train of thought again. I hate when this happens.
No, it's
I smoke
okay.
way too much weed.
No. Well, I had a shot of Jameson on an empty stomach. So we're in.
Should we do another one of those, by the way?
Do you want to do? Yeah, I would definitely. Let's pour another shot. Let's pour another shot.
Let's do that. That sounds like a good idea.
I'm going to move this microphone out of the way. All right, then. No, I'm not. It's still right in front of me. So I guess when we get back to it, and Dan, this would be probably a good time to take a look at that timestamp so we know when to cut.
What are we cutting?
Oh, just me fumbling for glasses.
This is the kind of content we're looking for.
Yeah, this is the good stuff.
This is the good stuff? This is the drama here? Are we getting it poured? Hold on.
What if I vomit right after I take this shot?
Let's not do that.
Listeners, stand by.
We don't have an overnight cleaning crew.
Yeah, please don't do that. I'm pouring the Jameson into a cup.
Can you hear the...
Oh, that's good stuff.
I got to tell you, that's one of the most overused and irritating sound effects I hear on the radio, is the opening of a can and pouring liquid into a cup. Like every beer commercial has that. Yeah. That whole, it drives me crazy when I hear it.
It's like nails on a chalkboard now.
Yeah, it is.
So, but when you do it for real, like when you actually are opening up something nice and cold, like a can.
It is refreshing.
It's really refreshing. But when you hear it, on the radio, or not on the radio, it's a podcast commercial that is also a TV commercial for Busch Light beer, and they do this elongated Busch thing. Thank you. I'll move it back, Dan. I know. And they do that on podcasts now, and that's the entire commercial. It's just a guy that says...
It kind of just says Busch.
He just says Busch.
Well,
and that's the 30-second spot.
I got to tell you, I used to write commercials for a living, and if that, I think that's brilliant. If I got 30 seconds and all you say is Busch, that works for me.
Busch.
All right, to Busch.
To the bush.
Not that one. Or that
Bush
one.
Light beers.
All right, that one.
It's be your rock star. It'll make you feel better. Oh.
So
Yes, sir.
I was wanting to just say that, like, actors, I feel like what they are doing is they are afraid. I think many of the actors I see in live theater are afraid of taking risks. They're afraid of maybe admitting to themselves that this career is not going to work out for them. Mm-hmm. And so what they do is they find themselves a safe space with which to perform, which is typically with a group of other theater people who aren't making it or aren't, being that successful, and just telling the stories that they want to tell. It really is just like you're finding
Avoiding
your friend.
a challenge.
Exactly. Because you know that you can't meet it.
Mm.
And I just see that there's too much of a, nobody wants to hurt anybody else's feelings. And when it comes to theater, it's an intensely personal art, like if someone says they don't like your painting, I can feel like, well, yeah, I kind of screwed up that line there, and you could feel like I could paint that painting again and maybe I could fix some of the problems with it. But when it's your performance and you go and you audition, you put yourself out there, and people say, I don't like it, you really feel like they don't like you. You know what I mean? It's like there's, you can't just go in there and do a line differently and get it. Just inherently, they think that you weren't right for the part. There's
a personal attachment to the work that they're doing being a comment on their personality,
right,
and who they are.
Yeah.
I always found Mike Birbiglia's joke about people not liking his stand-up hysterical. Like it's because I that's when I'm hearing as you tell this section now is like doing stand-up comedian, when they say that they don't like your act, they're saying they don't like you. And I think, oh, that makes sense for stand-up comedians. Because a lot of, for some of them, the ones that I should say I connect with the most are the ones that are making connections to the world that they see through their lens. And then they make jokes about it.
Right. You're talking about a certain level of comedian that's fairly advanced, because I'm like, these comedians that are still doing the airport jokes and, those kinds of, I'm like, they're not really putting.
No, we're not talking about Banya here. No, we're not really like Banya, kick that Ovaltine bit to the side, okay? Yeah. We're done with that.
No, I have nothing but respect for stand-up comedians, because they do a job that I know that I can't do. It is an absolute fear of mine, but it's one of those bucket list goals to get up and do 5 minutes of stand-up comedy. And thinking about all the time I've spent in my life on stage in front of people, I've got no stage fright, but I am scared shitless to stand in front of a group of people for 5 minutes who are telling me, make me laugh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm
Absolutely.
like, that scares the life out of me. So these stand-up comedians who get up there with all this confidence and they're able to do that, to me, that's a talent that I just don't have. I'm always so blown away by them.
Well, you know what's so funny? I listened to this podcast called Two Bears, One Cave. Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer. They're the standard hosts of it. Tom Segura's been doing it a lot of late because Bert's been out doing a movie, and so he's been having other comedians come on and talk. And the vast majority of the time, it's pretty free form conversations, two buddies talking, much like what we're doing right now, and. But with comedians, they start talking about the work and the bits and what it takes to get to a certain number of minutes. And what I find is it's not necessarily a confidence in themselves to do the work. It's a confidence in their material. They refer to it as it's a tight 5 minutes, a tight 30.
Well, that kind of gets back to what I was saying, though. There's an inherent challenge built into being a stand-up comedian. You know what I mean? Because you only have 5 minutes. You only have 2 minutes. You've only got this one bit. You got to make this crowd laugh. It's just different. You don't get to cater the crowd to you. You know what I mean? And you can do that here with theater. You can be inviting your friends and family to come see your shows. You can be inviting the theater community at large to come see your shows and just feel like, well, you just get general support that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't get to do that with stand-up comedy. A lot of the time, the audience didn't even really plan on being there. They just happen to end up there. And they're not necessarily in the mood for a show. You have to put them in the mood. And that challenge means you have to keep getting better, and you have to be hard on yourself, and you have to accept criticism, and you have to be willing to work on these things. I think stand-up comedians go through a lot more of a struggle than your typical actor does. I think actors can retreat into a safe space where they do a type of theater or performance that they feel cozy and comfortable with, and stand-up comedians just are not afforded that luxury. They're constantly uncomfortable and have to fight to, to make it look like they are.
One of the things I love when I listen to stand-up comics talk about their work is when they get like a quiet audience, a cold audience, and how much or little their act changes, because it's the act. Yeah. I've got these 10 minutes, and we're 30 seconds in, and everyone's shooting me daggers with their eyes. Mm-hmm. I've got 9.5 minutes. I've got to get through this 9.5 minutes, and then they go through it, and then they talk about how they might win a couple.
Right.
Like, oh, I've got them laughing on something. I'll just stick with them and see if that spreads.
I've liked that mentality. I've heard that kind of thing a lot, where they just like feel like there's just this one guy with a sourpuss look on his face, and they're just like, I don't care about the rest of the audience. I'm making this guy laugh. Yeah. That's my goal. I don't care what I have to do to accomplish that. Their ability to be able to work with the crowd directly like that is such a cool bonus that we don't get. Because I keep thinking like, man, I'm barely aware of the crowd during a show. During a comedy, I basically am only looking for that background noise of ha 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 at the right points. I don't care if every joke lands. I don't care if every bit lands. My focus isn't really on their reaction. I just need to know that, like, here's the noise so that I can start making sound again when they start calming down. You know what I mean?
Riding that wave.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I've been able to notice about my path in performance is there was a big portion of my early career, like the first 7 years, where I couldn't see shit on stage.
Yeah.
I couldn't see you across the table from me because I would never act with my glasses on because Sam Gilstrap needed corrective lenses, not Malcolm.
Right.
Or, insert name here of characters I've played without my prescriptions. Like Musa. I played Musa in Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo, and I couldn't see anyone. When I had someone's genitalia pop out on stage that night, I couldn't see it even if he like waved it at me. It wasn't going to happen.
You poor baby.
Yeah. And he was ready. But anyway, but then I got contacts for one show. Thank you. Shout outs to the Arvada Center. Woo! And I was able to put those in, and that I realized the first time I went out there for like a rehearsal with those contacts in. And I could see the director like 10 rows back as he was taking notes. I'm like, oh fuck, that's gonna mess with me. And that like once I could see people, then I really had to work on focusing more into just the moment, just those little tasks here and there that my character was I'm getting redundant, tasked with. But just focusing on those things to try and cut out that chatter, because like I'll be up there and I'll see a couple leaning on each other because they're sitting in a section that's got 4 chairs out of it. Like there's just 2 in these 4 open spaces. So they're just like, I like lounging on you like you're my couch, and I've got my feet up on these seats, and like I find that super distracting because your feet should be on the ground because you only paid for 2 seats. But anyway, that's just me trying to get right about certain things. It's so. I don't know if I'm necessarily talking about what you're talking about. I just wanted to talk about me being able to see the audience. I just realized, like, oh no, I'm just going on a tangent about me. Real good. That's good.
No, I guess
that's good, Gilstrap.
I'm just thinking that, like, what would change in a live theater performance if the performers on stage were able to work off the crowd the way a stand-up comedian does? So a stand-up comedian, especially a good one, is going to have multiple sets. You know what I mean? So it's not as if they only have one 10-minute set. They just have the one that they've been doing on this particular tour or whatever, right? So it's not going well. They have all these little tools they have in their back pocket they can pull out, or other sets or other jokes, and they
Props
can try to,
if you're Carrot Top.
But whatever, they can feel that crowd and say, oh, you know what, this crowd didn't really like the salty humor. We're going to go for, I have more clean material here, I can do that, I can switch that. So actors don't have that opportunity. But what if they did? What if a director had told them, like, here's a show, you're going to memorize your lines, we're going to memorize them all just flat. There's no inflection on anything. I don't want you guys putting any emotion into the show whatsoever. It is an absolute black and white version of this play. And then when we put it up to perform, we're going to let the audience dictate how the show feels. You guys are going to have to read the audience and then perform to them. So the show becomes whatever, you feel like that audience in particular is looking for. And it's your guys, it's up to you guys to create that.
That would be really cool to see kind of be workshopped. I think I would. I'm just sitting here listening to that idea and thinking like, I think you'd have to give them a starting and ending point.
Why?
I don't know why.
I mean, the show has a starting and ending point. I mean, if they've got a story to tell. It's just what they want to put into it, how, like the through line that they want to tell. That what's the through line that they want to tell for that particular performance to that particular audience.
That's solely dictated by audience response.
Right.
Yeah.
How they work with the crowd, of the artist's interpretation of how that crowd is working. It's just like something a stand-up comedian gets to do that we never get to, and I think it's such a cool dynamic. That fourth wall that we just get to like
rely on.
Yeah, as for safety. And that's how that feels. It feels like to me when there's lights on stage, the audience is just a blur and they're just noise. They're not actual people sitting in there. And I feel like, man, I like that idea that you can focus on one person and say, I'm going to reach out to this person. I'm going to try and get this person engaged. Yeah. And I would love to see there was more of a opportunity for actors to work on that or practice that. Because I think we could do a lot with it. But yeah, we don't really do that.
No. I've had some experiences within the last year of doing some immersive theater, and I feel like in those environments you could create something like that would be really effective, where you make the show almost about them. It would be a unique thing to explore.
I mean, to me, anything that would put actors in an uncomfortable position. That's the kind of thing I would look for, especially in this community, where I feel like, man, we're a very PC planet now, and there's a big push to not offend anybody, and I feel like, man, theater wouldn't be what it is if it didn't offend people, if it didn't rile people up. I think this might be going a bit far, but I can tell you from me personally, if the movie Joker was a live performance, I think it would have incited a riot.
Yeah.
I was that into that movie. I mean, to me, that movie was a call to arms for people like me, and it was amazing to have a story that was told to me, I'm an ill person. You know what I mean? It's like we're typically ignored, and we're to see a whole movie that's kind of about us. It was a huge deal, and it made me feel empowered. And I just thought, man, like getting to see that in a movie theater, there's some safety there because there's a distance between me and the movie screen. But if you put real live people in there, if Joaquin Phoenix was actually there in person and I got that same performance from him, I mean, it would have affected me completely differently. And I just feel like don't shy away from that. That's the power of theater. That's not a detriment. People shouldn't be scared about being offended. I don't think people in the theater should be afraid of offending people. I think that's kind of the point here. So I just see too much focus on let's make sure nobody's offended, and let's put on the safest performance we possibly can, rather than taking a look at the whole and saying what can theater do for the world today.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we look at some of the things that have been happening with how people have responded to specific stimuli, whether they were heard in November or not. What I'm trying to drive at? I find that if we were challenging our audiences like we hope that an actor would be challenged with material, like, all right, because this is where growth comes from, is when we find something new and we push through that and come through it on the other side. For better or for worse, well, at least we got through it, yes. We're challenging the audience. I'm going to say, I think there's a fine line between challenging and outright offense for offense sake.
There is. I typically don't have an issue with offending for offense sake. I get why people get really tired of that, and it does get old. But I feel like there is a place for it. But yeah, it's not what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in offending anybody just to offend somebody. I feel like that's a waste. But challenging people, I think, is really important, especially challenging your actors. And I don't know how an audience can really be challenged if the performers on stage aren't as well. Yeah, if the actors on stage feel like they understand what this whole show is about, they got this all under lock and key. Like they're so confident that they understand the point of the show. I kind of feel like the audience might feel like they're getting talked down to. there's this, there's an attitude of, oh, I got this. It's something for you to learn. We don't need to learn these things. You need to learn these things.
Yeah.
I much prefer the idea of the actors are up there saying, hey, we need to learn this. We need to figure this out together.
Yes.
And that's an opportunity that I feel like live theater has. Like right now, empathy is a big deal. I feel like the people who are of the right need to experience different stories. They need to empathize with stories that they're not familiar with. They need to see life through other people's eyes. I don't think they're bad people. I just think they lack exposure.
Yes.
And I feel like, man, that's where theater, that's our responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can't move these people into different communities. We can't pick these people up and force them into integration and these kinds of things, but as a theater group, we can bring that to them. We can tell them stories from different communities, and they might hate it.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. They might be really offended because we said Black Lives Matter. I don't care. I'm here to kind of push on that.
Yeah.
And if they do get really upset by it, then I feel like I'm doing my job.
Yeah. Well, then that's where the discussion can finally happen. Like if we're
actual discussion.
If we're putting that on them, forcing you to deal with it, as opposed to dialing it back because we're afraid of how you'll respond, get an angry tweet, a bad Yelp review, a flat out email to the board or whatever. If we didn't worry about those repercussions from putting out challenging material, smart, approached with homework being done, so we're not just flying off half-cocked, like I could be prone to do with a microphone in front of myself, doing this live. I could say something that I haven't fully thought out because I want a hot take. If we're putting out something that we've put effort into to then challenge our communities, whether they love it or hate it, at least they felt something. And maybe the next time they go to act on their, we'll say, prejudiced impulses, they'll remember that performance, and it might stop them or give them some pause.
That's exactly right. I think a good movie that highlights that is The Birdcage. Because when it came out, people were not talking about the trans community. People weren't talking about gender identity. It just, gay was still kind of a weird thing at that time. And they put on this full Birdcage movie that was just like unapologetic about how inclusive it was, and it's talking about these issues that people still find taboo and whatnot. Today, I am so impressed that movie still holds up. You know what I mean? I keep thinking like that seems like a movie that cancel culture would go after today, because it was just made at a time when we weren't as culturally aware of one another. But they approached that project with care. Like the people who were involved with it gave a shit about what they were talking about and knew that they were challenging the community who was going to go see that. People who were Gene Hackman fans would not have expected him to be a part of that movie. If anyone went to that movie, just go, oh, I see anything Gene Hackman's in. Like they could have been in for a real big shock as far as, how that end of that movie turns out for Gene.
Yeah.
So, I feel like that's kind of a project where they had a challenge. They took it seriously. They took it respectfully, and it absolutely paid off. I wish we would see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, like the show I just saw recently, it feels like that's more the problem, where people are focusing on the wrong things. Like it seems like they're more focused on making sure they have this diverse cast, and people of different color and people of different religious backgrounds and all this kind of stuff, which you should. You would just hope that this is the people of your community. Your community is coming out to audition for your show. Your community should be represented. If your community isn't that diverse, then your show doesn't have to be that diverse. Your community's not. Represent your community. You know what I mean? My focus should always be on telling the story. Now, I love the idea of not using race to determine roles. You know, I'm like, if the role doesn't call for a specific person to be white or black, then mix that stuff up. I think that's totally fine. Get the best actor for the part. I hate the argument that like, I can't play a gay character because I'm not a homosexual, or that kind of argument to me. I'm like, this is what actors do. We play people that we're not. This is kind of the job. And I feel like, especially when it comes to things like sexuality, we all deal with this in theater. It is not just gay people who deal with that kind of that environment. everybody in theater deals with that environment. And we all are trying to, figure this out and tell this story together. And I just kind of feel like this idea that only certain people can tell certain stories, that seems like a real dangerous, stupid, wasteful way to take theater,
To a point, yeah. I mean, for me, as you were talking about that, one of the things that came to my mind is that there should be a little more freedom on who tells stories, but I always find that someone who's lived that life is going to tell it more authentically.
I mean, I would have to gauge the level of talent of that person.
Yeah.
Like, they might have a more authentic story. I get that their ability to tell it in a more authentic way, that I have to say that goes on their talent. It has nothing to do with their experience.
But then again, when we were talking about empathizing with people, empathizing with people, Jameson. That's just I'll blame it on that. Not the fact that I can't talk after working with kids all day. To empathize with people, I feel like I've played parts that were written for Middle Eastern characters.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I can do that anymore, despite my racial ambiguity when people look at me. I mean, I still have people who think I'm just Caucasian,
right?
And then there are people who see me as just Navajo, but then there are people who have no idea and go and lumping me into things.
Yeah.
I've been called black.
Right, yeah.
I've been called, I was like, which part of Africa did you come from? I've had a woman ask me that question.
Really?
I'm like, yeah.
Oh,
I'm like, never. No, I've not. I've only been to Japan with my passport. But like, and people think I'm Japanese, and it's an interesting thing to hear that I could pass to that one person. But if I were to say try and tell an authentic story, it would be if you gave that, like, for the person I'm sliding into this role, this hypothetical role, is super talented. I find that someone who has lived that life has got the ability to tap into something deeper that, say, if we're talking about heterosexuals playing a homosexual part, that a heterosexual might not necessarily be able to tap into. However, one of the things that I feel that you're talking about is that these experiences are experiences that we all share to an extent. Love is love, right? So we've all experienced that to some degree, hopefully, in our lives. We've know what it's like to be told no when that love is being shut off, or we're having our heart broken. That's something that we can tap into there. Like, there are specific universal truths I'd like to hope, because if not, then this whole peace seems really hard to get to then if we can't agree on at least some of those things. But anyway, I'm going to start talking myself in circles, but that's where I would push back a little bit on what you're saying.
Well, so as far as you playing a character of a different race, I think that you should have the ability to take that challenge. You should also understand that you're opening yourself up for a lot of criticism, and I think that should be fair. I wish that criticism would come fairly and with the intention to help people grow, as opposed to just shaming people or trying to make them feel embarrassed or racist for daring to accept a part that isn't catered to you and your race. When those situations come up, I don't like to focus on the fact, like, on the race part of that. I more want to think about, like, why is the director, whoever chose this play, why are they choosing this play? If there's not a large portion of, let's say, Middle Eastern actors in your community that are going to come out and audition for this, then why do you feel like this is a story that needs to be told? How is your story told more effectively if you don't have, how are you telling West Side Story more effectively if you don't have a Puerto Rican community to tap into, to fill into it, right?
Yeah.
And you better have an answer for that.
Yes.
If you don't have an answer for that, then you deserve a lot of criticism for getting up there and telling a story and not putting that kind of thought into it. And I feel like that theater deserves to go on. It deserves to be thoroughly criticized, and the people involved with it should hopefully grow from it. But the idea of just shutting it down and shouting people down and telling them to just stay away from that kind of thing, I just feel like that's destructive. That's where you get people aren't going to have the opportunity to learn. This is an opportunity for people to get up there and kind of embarrass themselves a little bit. And that's a great way for people to learn. It's, it's embarrassing, it's painful, but it's great for people to learn. People don't like being embarrassed, and they certainly don't want to find themselves in that situation a second time.
Where my school job as a dean, I mean, a lot of that's how I teach and reach kids.
Embarrass yourself?
No, I embarrass both of us.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I all day today, my introductions were filled with, weird accents and things, just trying to embarrass myself, but get them to laugh with me because I'm uncomfortable. It's my first day with a new population of kids. I need to kind of break down any walls that I've built around myself. Anyway, but then also, like, when I have someone act up, be disrespectful, we got to gently call that out. And I find that if that is a little embarrassing more than it is shaming, then there is they can see where, I think this is what you were getting at. They can see where the disconnect was in their behavior,
right? Because I think
work at improving on that.
Embarrassment takes an amount of empathy. It's like they kind of see the perspective of somebody else and see themselves through somebody else's eyes, and that's how they get embarrassed. Is because they're like, "Oh, I thought I was being this. In reality, I was being that," and that's shameful or embarrassing on myself. Whereas if they're just being shamed, they're in a defensive posture where it's just like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And then they're not accepting responsibility. They're not empathizing. They're just shutting down and feeling attacked.
And then they're turning on Alex Jones full blast.
Oh God, I hate you. Don't make me think of that bastard.
We won't. We're gonna change it. We're gonna change subjects now. All right. Before we get going, I want to get it on record. Batman is better than Superman.
Batman is not better than Superman. Here's the deal. Anybody can relate to Batman because he deals with that kind of darkness and silence and torture that we all kind of go through. We all have secrets that we keep to ourselves.
Oh, what are you talking about over
but
there?
Superman represents hope, which is not something we all have. And it's not something that we all stew over. It's something that we have to challenge ourselves to achieve. And we have not held ourselves responsible to that challenge. We are not a hopeful culture. We do not promote hope. We don't, we promote Batman. We promote hate, and we promote vengeance, and we promote fascism, and we promote, authoritarianism, And I'm like, that's just not what Superman is about at all. He has much greater ideals. And, I love the perspective of this is an alien coming with a different perspective on Earth, coming and looking at what we are and what our opportunity is, and trying to show us all if you all just work together, you could do some actually really, really awesome things. Whereas Batman is more no, we're forever separate, we're forever apart. Nothing can ever bridge our this gap. You deserve to be punished because of what happened to my parents. It's just a weird, vengeful, dirty, negative, pitiful, emo-driven hellhole. And there you go. Superman is better than Batman. So did that put an end to that argument?
Yeah, I guess so. Before we go, what's your ghost light these days? What's that mantra for you that keeps you working at yourself?
I got this from Christy Montour Larson. It's "You are enough." It's an incredibly important mantra for people who deal with borderline personality disorders, is what I have, because we don't have a sense of identity, a sense of self. We constantly change who we are to try to make other people like us, so we need somebody else to tell us that we're valuable. And so that reminder that, no, I don't need anybody else to tell me that I'm valuable. I'm valuable enough on my own. I'm enough. That's been a long, hard lesson for me to learn. And Christy was the first person to tell me that during the first show she cast me in, and I was all upset that I couldn't act as well as the lead actress did, and I felt totally overwhelmed and outmatched, and I didn't belong on stage. And that's all she told me is, "You are enough." And she was so confident in the way that she said it. It just really took me by surprise. And the more that I've thought about that simple little phrase, the more I've thought that's one of the coolest truths and the easiest mantras I can try to remind myself of that I've ever heard. And so, yeah, you are enough. I think it's important to know.
Absolutely. Well, shout outs to Christy Montour Larson. I've echoed her and you through her statements quite often on this podcast. So I want to thank Colin Ahern for being a guest on the Ghost Lights podcast. It has been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Dan, do the damn thing.
Did you?
No, of
Okay,
course not. No. I voted against him twice. I had to do that twice, people. What the hell?
And I keep. I fantasize every day that I'm gonna wake up and he's dead. Like I just keep thinking that I want to see that headline, because I am very curious. I'm like hungry curious for what happens next. You know, like if he dies, then who is gonna try to take that mantle? Because I know it's going to be like a Rudy Jr. kind of a guy. It's going to be an absolute numbnut.
It's going to be somebody with a gigantic forehead who's involved in some really
stupid shit.
Yeah.
But they're not going to have the kind of charisma or ability that Trump has, and so they're just going to make an idiot out of them.
This is the thing that I've never. I mean, we might cut this from the pod because we're talking politically here. I never bought into the idea that guy with the big tie and the frontward fat guy lean. I say that because I've caught myself in mirrors, and I think I've got that.
You've got the Trump.
I've got the Trump lean, and I really hate seeing that in myself. But there's nothing I can do about it.
It's kind of cartoonish. It reminds me of that character from Popeye. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, Baloo.
No, not Baloo.
No?
He's like he's one of the other characters. He's got like tiny little feet and a big round belly.
Oh, the hamburger guy.
The hamburger
Wimpy.
guy. There you go. That's what I'm
Wimpy.
talking about.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's the wimpy. He's got the wimpy fat guy lean.
Yeah.
Anyway, I never understood that he had charisma.
Right.
People were swooned by that guy.
But but here's the thing. This goes back to what we were talking about, because what you're admitting to is a lack of ability to empathize with somebody that you don't understand. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And theater has the ability to bridge that gap. Trump is very much, I want to say he's very much like me, but he's like the exact opposite of me. So we both have personality disorders, and mine is the exact opposite of his. So where he only thinks about himself, I only think about everybody else. And both of those things cause havoc. It's not like I don't want to come off as if saying I'm this totally selfless person and that's such a great thing. It has caused nothing but problems in my life and other people's lives. So it's not a brag. It's just, these things are dangerous behaviors. And Trump got there for a reason. I don't think it's coincidence that both of us have Scottish mothers. I think that's true. Like there's certain, both of us experienced some level of trauma when we were being raised, and it sent both of us on a different path. Trump's path is very unique in that it was covered up by obscene amounts of money and nobody who seemed to care about him individually. So no one gave a shit that this guy was growing up stupid. No one gave a shit that this guy, no one cared about him. And I'm like, so I can empathize with Trump. I get it. Like, it must kind of suck to grow up and know that your parents didn't love you. The people around you don't value you for anything except for what you can possibly do for them. Like that's a weird, sad, lonely.
But do you think he knew that at any point in time?
He doesn't care.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's to me, that's where
there's the crux.
Right. So, see, he's still responsible. He's an adult and he's responsible for his actions. And that's where he's a failure. I have sympathy for him and empathy for him, but it goes to a point.
Yeah.
All these things, should be addressed, and he should have gotten them addressed back when he's in his teens or 20s. The fact that he still has them in his 70s is by choice.
Yeah.
It's because he's, lazy and enjoys being ignorant.
It's easier that way. No. I mean, shoot. That's what. Listening. Did you watch any of the finals, the NBA finals?
Nope.
All right. So Monty Williams, the head coach of the Phoenix Suns, had some really good stuff caught by microphones on the sideline, talking to his teammates.
Oh yeah,
his players.
You mean good stuff or?
Yeah, really good stuff.
Okay.
No, it wasn't like hot mic. He said something he shouldn't have said. Sorry, I just had a Family Guy joke right into my head, so I gotta shake that off. Anyway, he had said something like, what we want is on the other side of hard. So you got to get through this. And I think this is something we've been talking about this entire podcast, or alluding to. We talked about it, we touched on it the last 20 minutes, is challenging ourselves, getting through that hard, that difficult experience to get to what people call it a promised land, just accomplishing a goal. Experiencing this joy that we've built up in our brains has to be done through, more times than not, an obstacle, a challenge in front of us. And you're right. Some of us see that challenge and we just stop right there. We don't go through it. Some of us even back off of that and never go near that wall again.
Yeah, I feel like somehow we've turned that wall into some sort of a boogeyman. And I'm like, no, it's still just be an obstacle. It's just a challenge. And it's something that, like any other obstacle, we're supposed to overcome. But there seems to be a societal agreement that, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're just, we don't want to piss anybody off. We're scared the next person who gets mad is going to go on a shooting spree or whatever. So we just, gloves off with everybody and we don't push.
And they and those terrible things happen even without us challenging them or challenging ourselves to take care of them.
There's that, but to me, I mean, I don't mean to be cold-hearted, but I look at the much bigger picture. I'm like, there's a lot more people at threat, right now than the people that can die during a school shooting or during a mass shooting. The entire species is under threat. You know what I mean? So I'm like, if we need to somehow work really, really hard to get through to one another, and this attitude that we have of either just succumbing to the uselessness of trying to reach out to the other side, or this attitude that we have that there's certain topics that are just too complicated for us to broach, or they're too PC, I don't know, for us to be able to approach. I just find that stuff so stupid. It's just like you're looking at our potential and you're just cutting it out. You're just making us worse. I think the opportunity, if you have an opportunity to step in and play a character of a different race, I think that's an awesome challenge. And if I ever got that opportunity as an actor, the first place I'd go is somebody who is a part of that race. And I would sit there and talk to them about it. And I'd talk to them about the show. And I'd talk to them about the character and, get these people's opinion and try to challenge myself. Can I accurately portray the life that this person is explaining to me? Can I empathize with that? Can I get my mind wrapped around that? Can I give that performance? The audience, especially if it's something like it's a race that, let's say like the Asian community.
Yes.
Where like they're from a whole different part of the world. They look different, but they're a total different culture as well. They're not like Black Americans who have been a part of America for forever. You know what I mean? They're just kind of a different sect of people. And when we, I'm trying to tiptoe here.
No. Tiptoe lighter.
No. What I guess what I'm trying to say is that people respond to what they're comfortable with. So we as human beings like to see people who look like us, talk like us, pray like us. You know what I mean? That makes us feel safe and comfortable. It's not true.
It justifies the choices we've made.
Right. And so if I was going to tell a story to a bunch of racist assholes about how Black people are okay, or how the Asian community is just another community of people, they're not different, they don't deserve extra hate or any of that, they didn't cause the virus. You want to teach people these kinds of things, you could put like an all Chinese cast on there, and then put on the show. And yeah, everybody in the audience is going to be maybe extraordinarily uncomfortable and get into that same position we talked about the other person was in, defensive, feeling like they're being attacked. You know what I mean? But if you put someone that looks a little bit more like them, someone that's familiar, maybe even someone from their community into one of those roles, and you're trying to say, see, what we're trying to do is bridge the gap. We're trying to show you that these people who you think are so different than you aren't all that different from you. As a matter of fact, they're almost exactly like you. And you guys, we should all be getting along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like, there's a power of theater and an ability to do that that is getting completely shaken off. The idea that is getting completely shaken off because people are afraid that a community of people is going to be offended, that a misrepresentation might occur. And I feel like the intention of the play isn't to necessarily represent your community fully accurately. It's not like, we're not telling a autobiography here. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to tell a story to this community, and this community can hear this story in a certain way, and trying to say there's only one way the community needs to hear that story. And if you diverge from that way, then you're doing something wrong. I feel like, wow, you're just taking the power of theater and throwing it in the trash. You're saying, no. Its ability to reach out and challenge people and touch people is, second place to its ability to offend somebody. So that's what I'm trying to get at when it comes to your ability to play different parts in different races. Not that it shouldn't be taken seriously. It absolutely should be taken seriously. It just should be treated like a challenge instead of you're a racist because you did that. I just don't. I can't put that together when I feel like you can say that about any part. Like I was not George Washington. Yeah. I have to be honest about that and upfront about that. I I played George Washington on stage, and I was never president of the United States.
You weren't?
Yeah. And so I'm just like, how there's that disconnect where people feel like, well, Colin, you can pretend to be president. That's okay. But you can't pretend to be a different color. I guess I just lose like who's making these rules?
I don't know how to answer that question. I would say that what I kind of feel like, if you're presenting for your specific example, you're trying to educate a community that has been just doesn't have an exposure to the Asian community.
Right.
And so you try and then present it with, I'm assuming, a bunch of actors from the community, so predominantly a bunch of white actors.
Right. So I'm a director, and I decide that this is the show I want to put on for this community because I feel like it'll help bridge that gap. In my community, I don't have a very large Chinese population. So I've already put myself into a hole by saying that, I know I'm going to be creating this situation. I would have to be able to say artistically that I can make this decision and it makes sense because it's going to achieve my goal of bridging this gap.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's what show it would be effective at doing that. I don't know if that's, you know what I mean? I don't know if the show exists that would make sense, or that would, could be an artistic position you could defend. But I feel like just as an idea, that it makes sense to me, that, you can't shove I can't shove a story down someone's throat if they're not prepared to hear it. And I like the idea of challenging somebody. I don't like the idea of trying to overwhelm people. I feel like that's one of the bigger issues we're running into with the divide of left-right, is that, I think us as people on the left are constantly calling people on the right stupid. Yeah. Or we demean them and pretend as if we're somehow different than them. And I'm like, no, we're the same stupid. We make the same stupid decisions that they do. We're humans, and we're all, susceptible to do this stuff. When you throw all this information at someone who's just like, look, I know how to hunt, I know how to farm, I know how to change my oil, I don't know how to make a vaccine. So when you start telling me that, it's got this in it and this in it and this in it, it just sounds overwhelming to me. And you can keep saying it over and over and call me stupid for not getting it. Yeah. I don't care. I'm overwhelmed by your information and I don't trust it. Continuing to hammer at that same effect is not effective. You can't just keep hammering away like that and expect that one day people are going to go, oh, you have to adjust your approach. You got to come to the table. You got to bring these people up to the table to negotiate. And so if that means that I have to find a way to make a story a little bit easier for them to accept or go along with, you know what I mean? By making it more familiar to them or adapt it to more to their style, I feel like I could see that decision getting made, and I could see it being artistically defended and find a point to it, and I would defend it as well. I just feel like there's a large voice out there right now in a part of the community that is just saying, nope.
It's got to be 100% accurate representation, or the story shouldn't be told.
Right. And I feel like, man, that's dangerous territory.
The thought that I had in this last little bit here is the disconnect of the purpose of theater.
Sure.
Because you kind of started by saying the purpose of theater should be to connect and talk to people and convince people and empathize with people. But I don't think everybody's purpose in theater is that.
Right.
That's what speaks to you, and that's what you want to do to make theater purposeful to you. And so for you, a white actor portraying an Asian is accomplishing the thing that you think that theater should do. Whereas marginalized populations want to see themselves on stage, to say, I am worthy and my story can be told by me. And so they're going to the theater and they're seeing those pieces for different reasons. I 100% agree that if you put a accurately portrayed show on stage in front of, and I literally, I think I'm in the same boat as Sam. I hadn't heard as good of an argument that as you put out for this point of view. But it's because you based it in what's the point of it. If we cut out the point of trying to get a group of people to empathize, then it makes no sense. But when you put it the way, like, look, you put a completely Asian or Black or Jewish population on stage in front of people who have inherent biases against them, they're not going to learn the lesson. And so I think there is a point to telling a story with something you're familiar with. And so I agree with them. I just think that the point of Black Americans telling Black stories is not going to convince racist white people to accept them.
Right. But that is so, like in the Denver community, it's incredibly diverse, right? So if we go to the Denver Center and we see Miss Saigon and they have a white lady playing, the Miss Saigon, I feel like, the Asian community can go like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, what happened there? Do we not? Because I would like to see myself represented up on stage, and I know there's like thousands of us. So like, what happened there? And I feel like what the director is going to have to say is, I just thought that she was better for the role. I don't know. Like, it's going to be some stupid excuse. He's not going to be able to artistically defend it. However, if he did say, oh, this is what I was trying to do with that, it can still be a bad idea. Like, he can still face criticism for saying, I was trying to make this accomplished, but he should not be dissuaded or discouraged from making that attempt. Because I like, who better than the Asian community to be able to come in there and slap that guy upside the face and be like, I know you were going for this, but you missed. I can't tell him that. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just feel like, it's just the idea of the challenge. Because to me, it's not about, I don't think that they're necessarily going to achieve what they're aiming for. You know what I mean? And so I feel like I want them to be open to all that criticism that they should fairly get. And I feel like they're not going to... It's like telling a racist person to be quiet. It's like they can still have all these racist thoughts. They can still... You know what I mean? All you've done is silence them. You haven't changed them. You know what I mean? You've just made them feel more uncomfortable, which is, okay, fine. But it's not solving the fucking problem, So I'm like, you got to get this person to talk and engage that person and somehow find common ground with that person. And you're just not going to do that if you say, like, you're not allowed to tell that story because you're not the color that I want you to be.
As a Navajo, and I'm definitely like, this has been an enlightening conversation, and I really want to. I want to echo that. I do think representation is important. I'm not saying that you're not saying that, but I feel like what you're asking for might be, or not asking for, theorizing. I would think that's a tough ask. I would think that'd be a tough ask. It would be a tough pill to get to that place nowadays. But I don't know.
Again, we go back to that stand-up comedian conversation. Asking this guy to make people crack up laughing in 5 minutes is a big ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These are challenges, and they're not meant to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean they should be avoided.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. No, I'm not saying we should avoid it because it's hard to get to that point. The way in which we would be going about it is, for me, right at this particular point, this is a challenge that I need to work through and see really where it's effective. That was really interesting stuff, though, and I think we got to a cool place with the thought process about how that would be presented and what the goal is in the end.
Yeah, I feel like the theater community is a unique community in that, like I said, we're all the freaks and geeks, we're all the weirdos, and we're a home for that kind of group. And so I feel like we should all be able to come together as the ones who are kind of the outcasts and the misfits. And we all have our differences. We all experience life differently, that somehow we can see a similarity through that, that we all have our challenges. And yes, it is important that people understand what the gay lifestyle is like, and the oppression that these people face. It's important that people understand that. And a person who's never faced that oppression might have an incredibly difficult time ever performing that part, or be able to sell the idea of oppression to another audience. That's absolutely true. It should be a challenge for that performer, a challenge for us as human beings to empathize with people, to put ourselves in their shoes. And if we find ourselves unable to project that kind of lifestyle, we should see that as a failure on our own part to to kind of attach to our humanity. That don't take it as well, these people I'm just never going to understand, so I'll let them deal with it. I'm just separate from them now. I just feel like that's a failure. We're not coming together if we're doing that. We're intentionally keeping ourselves apart.
We're hitting that wall and we're stopping there.
Yeah, and we're turning around and running away from it.